Jump into it.
There are three types of computer people in this world: users, programmers, and hackers. The user
Yeah, okay. First off, users, programmers, hackers. We are in this category, and maybe a little bit of this category. Sorry, I just wanted to draw on the screen, I'll be honest with you. Okay, anyway.
just wants boring software to make boring spreadsheets to get boring stuff done at work. But in
True.
their naivety, users often get penetrated by hackers with high levels of riz, who employ
Nice.
social engineering to steal personal data, intimate photos, and crypto wallets. But then you've
True.
got
True.
programmers. They're the unsung heroes who make all the software in the world work, but they too get penetrated by hackers. If a
Yeah, they
programmer
do.
leaves the back door open to their mainframe, it could lead to catastrophic consequences that cost them their job and their employer billions of dollars. The lesson to be
True.
learned here is that you want to be the one doing the penetrating, not some stranger in a foreign country who doesn't even care about your feelings. In today's video, you'll learn
Okay. So first and foremost, before we get into it, if we're talking about penetration and we're talking about pen testing and not being penetrated ourselves, the video is 10 open source tools that feel illegal. I imagine we're going to talk about like um we're going to talk about Kali Linux for sure because that's just like it's just an operating system that has like 800 tools built in specifically for like hacking, I guess, or blue team, red team. And then inside of that, you're gonna have like OSINT tools for like Facebook for social engineering, like checking that stuff out, pulling Twitter feeds, all that good stuff. I imagine we're going to talk about NMAP because that's just very handy and useful to find what you're looking for. We're going to talk about maybe Wireshark, maybe, may chance. Wireshark lets you do packet traces on information on a network. Um, there's like maybe Metasploit will probably be talked about. We'll see. We'll see.
fundamentals
And
of
like
ethical
before I continue again, uh, I I do kind of remember this video. I don't remember. I watched it like 3 months ago, so I have very little working knowledge.
hacking and pen testing by looking at 10 free and open
Oh,
source tools that you
wait, I was all right. Well, I got three of them. So we have on the left side over here. Let's see. Oh, over here, this one. We got Wireshark. Okay. Over here, whoops, it's really hard to draw on this thing. We have Metasploit. This is NMAP right here, the eye icon. Um, I trying to remember what John is. I can't remember off the top of my head. I think Air is also for Wi-Fi vulnerabilities, like seeing what's on a Wi-Fi network. Um, yeah, let's just jump into it. Why not? Frick it. I need to stop saying let's just jump into it. I realized I said that a
can
lot
use right
yesterday.
now, all of which are available by default
Oh,
on Kali Linux, a
look at that.
distro optimized for ethical hacking. By the end of this video,
It's also really easy to get download Kali Linux. You can just you Google Kali Linux, you put it on a flash drive, you plug it into a computer and you boot up. Don't do that though. It's easier to do it on a virtual machine. Download VirtualBox and Kali Linux. Then open a new virtual machine on VirtualBox as Kali Linux using that image, and then you're done. You just have a Kali Linux machine right there. Um, Quick side note though, if you are gonna do that, don't be an idiot about it. Don't use any of the tools if you don't know what they do. Don't use any of the tools without permission. Also, anything you do will be tracked because you're using when you set up a virtual machine in that kind of instance, you're actually going over your home network still. So just be mindful. Don't be an idiot.
you'll be a legit wannabe hacker who can take down entire nations. But if you like to do bad things, you need to turn this video off right now. The tools in this video, if used non-consensually, it could break many international laws that
Yep.
land you in prison. So never do
Yep.
penetration testing on a website or network without permission. But now that
Yep.
all the bad guys have clicked off this video,
100%.
let's learn how to use some of the most powerful and dangerous hacking tools. To follow along,
If this is your first time seeing this kind of video or these tools, then this don't don't use these tools. It's pretty much I don't know. You will get found out. You will get if you do anything illegal, it's very easy to figure it out.
I would highly recommend installing Kali Linux, and the desktop version is awesome. Although Microsofties can install it via WSL, or if you don't want to use Kali,
true.
you can just install each one of these hacking tools individually. But the best way to get started is to spin up your own virtual private server on Hostinger, the sponsor of today's video. Their platform gives you the power.
So that's a cute way of doing it. We are going to watch the ad because to support Fireship, but VPS or virtual private servers are basically just servers that are hosted in the cloud wherever you want. Like you can see the map right here, and you can put whatever you want on them. So you can run Kali Linux as a server hosted over here, which means your IP technically wouldn't be the one caught. However, your credit card information for hosting the server and your name and information all would be associated with that IP address. So you're still,
power and flexibility to run anything you want without locking you into a complicated and
I used to
expensive cloud
use
platform.
Linode
You can
a
run
lot.
a basic Linux server like Arch with powerful hardware like NVMe SSD storage and AMD EPYC chips. You can easily manage containers with a Docker VPS and their free Docker manager, or self-host entire backends like Supabase with a single click and zero config nightmares. But today, I'm using Hostinger to run Kali
used to use
Linux,
Linode
and
a
after
lot.
launching the VPS with just a few clicks, I can SSH into it with my password, and now our hacking journey begins. The first tool you need to know about is NMAP. It's like the peeping Tom.
I use NMAP a lot at my current work. NMAP, also every single security tool, every single security company, like CrowdStrike or like Cisco, Cisco Tenable, or anything that does vulnerability management across enterprise environments is basically a fancy Nmap wrapper, which is very funny. But anyway.
In your neighborhood who looks through all the windows in your house without actually breaking in. On a network like the one you're connected to right now to watch this video, there's likely multiple hosts connected to it, like your computer, your PlayStation, and your smart lock. And the purpose of Nmap is to map out a network. It does this.
If you are at home right now, you can actually check this. You can see what is available and what's currently talking. Even without Nmap, if you are plugged into your router or modem, most likely modem router combination if you're not, if you're renting from your ISP, but you can go to this address 192.168.1.0 or usually 0 or 1.1, and that'll be your gateway. So the gateway is what's actually facilitating all your traffic. And you can actually see what devices are currently on that. So you can see your wireless devices. You can see your, what kind of traffic is going through and stuff like that. It's very good for actual fixing your computer.
This by sending internet packets over an IP range. It then analyzes their responses to figure out which.
Yeah, this is what I'd look at work a lot. As I'll see things like 22, 21, 23 being open. 80, 443, 445, 3306, 1433. Those are all different types of ports that are being used. And usually, you don't really want 21, 22, or 23. 22 in this instance is how he's actually accessing this machine through a secure shell. But 80 and 443 are websites. So, like HTTP and HTTPS, like it says here. One is not secure and one is secure. You can tell with the little certificate icon. You'll be like, this website's not secure. But most stuff, if not all stuff, usually uses HTTPS unless it's locally hosted these days. And then there's 65,000 internet ports. The first 1,000 are all that really matter, though.
Ports are open, which operating systems they use to help you find backdoors to exploit. Like if grandpa misconfigured something on his network, you can hack his printer to send him a message.
And you would use that using the spooling service. There's a very popular vulnerability that was out a while ago called Print Nightmare that targeted the spooling service specifically. I think it used port 139 and port 445. I think those are the two. Or that might be SMB and file shares, though, but I might be wrong on that one. It's been a while.
Simply use the nmap command, followed by an IP address you have access to, like your local network, or even a URL that you have permission to penetrate. If we do that on a website,
One more thing, sorry, I'll stop pausing. NMAP is really cool because you can actually do a whole you can do a check on the whole subnet. So how IP addresses work is you see this one that says like 104.21.21.77. This is the subnet. So 104 is the gateway, 21 is the like hierarchy, and then 20 is the subnet itself. So there's actually 255 IP addresses in this range. So if you do 104.21.21.77/24, that's a /24 CIDR, that's 255 IP addresses. You'll actually go through and scan all of those on that subnet.
Right, you'll notice we get the
I'll shut the fuck up now.
IP address back, and it found that ports 80 and 443 were open. That's pretty cool, but we can also do a more aggressive scan with the A option. This will not only scan the network, but also try to detect the operating systems, and we'll use something called tracer route to track the path of the packets across the entire network, which can help detect misconfigurations that we can exploit. If you're interested in packets, though, another tool you'll need to know about is Wireshark. It's like that.
Wireshark and NMAP work very well in tandem as well.
At a party who tries to eavesdrop on every conversation. It allows you to inspect what's happening on the network at a microscopic level. You'll want to use the GUI on this one because it collects tons of data from hundreds of different protocols.
All right, since we're moving on to another thing, this is what your internet looks like. It's just sending constant traffic over different types of protocols. ARP commands are basic broadcasting information, so it's just seeing who's who has what, like why, like this techno thing is broadcasting who has this address, and then that address will respond back. MDNS is just doing basic queries across the local structure,
which are all captured in real time and can be.
The cool part is a lot of it's anything that's in an unsecure or anything that doesn't use certificate encryption. You can read the plain text information in this box down here.
Analyzed offline. For example, if you record the traffic on your network right now and notice all this weird traffic going to an IP address in North Korea, you can inspect the actual payload and might find out that they have access to those photos that were intended for only you and your future ex-wife to see. And now you might be radicalized and ready to fight back. Metasploit is perhaps the most
here we go, Metasploit
out there. It's like a Swiss Army knife with an AK-47 attached to it that allows even the most unskilled script kiddie to launch an attack. For example, we might be able to gain
Script kiddie I hate that word so much, but it's very apt. A script kiddie is someone who doesn't know anything about hacking, downloads a program, and then runs it, basically. And then they think they're the epic hacker.
Access to a Windows machine with a reverse shell, thanks to the Eternal Blue vulnerability. Open up the Metasploit console
Eternal Blue, baby.
Eternal Blue. That should bring up a list of potential Windows targets. We know that Grandpa is still on Windows 7, so let's go ahead and use that exploit. From there, we can set a payload to use a reverse shell and configure the local host to our own IP address. And then finally, run the exploit command. Congratulations, you just made a successful penetration. You can now.
So, funnily enough, something similar is used by I believe this is how Doc Brown, is that his name? Or something Brown? The guy who does the scammer payback, like hacker, like he hacks into the scammers and then gets their IP address and then remotes into their network. It's using something similar to this, except kind of a little bit more complex. So in his case, he's generally using a virtual machine that he's hosting, so he's freely giving them the IP address of that machine specifically, something that's not on his local computer. He's monitoring all the traffic, probably using Wireshark or something within Metasploit, grabbing their IP address from when they connect, and then doing a reverse connection, basically. And that's how he gets into their side.
Access all the files on this computer, change the desktop background, and install even more malware. But Metasploit is almost too powerful, and if you use it, you'll miss out on a lot of cybersecurity learning opportunities. The next tool you need to know about is AirCrack. Like
AirCrack, that's what it's
for
called.
Hacking those magical invisible packets floating around in the air called Wi-Fi. When you're at Starbucks enjoying a soy latte coding a Node.js app, there could be a guy behind the dumpster using AirCrack who just ran the airmon command, followed by airdump to find your network as the perfect target, and then proceeded to run run air crack to crack the Wi-Fi protected access key and can now pull all the packets out of thin air floating on this network. If you're connected to a regular unencrypted HTTP website, your sensitive data could be intercepted. That's why you always want to make sure to use HTTPS when submitting forms with personal data, because even if a hacker intercepts those packets, they'll be encrypted. Luckily though, the cops just arrested this guy because using air crack on a network without permission is highly illegal. But
so I do want to talk, I'm going to jump on that a little bit on what HTTPS and how it's actually encrypted. So HTTPS is it's hypertext, hyper something, whatever. Basically, it's secured using a certificate. So certificates basically are authenticated. Most websites, all websites, in fact, if you're going to publicly host, usually have some sort of domain provider. So that's like GoDaddy or Squarespace, Google. What they do is they genuinely authenticate it and say, yes, this is a trusted source. Put this specific certificate to say you're okay and to use like the internet, like according to DNS traffic, that's fine. And your computer will go to that website, read that, and go, okay, yep, it's actually been authenticated. It checks out. This is the actual host provider. This is the key for the cipher and everything. And you can actually do that right now on any website. If you're using like Google Chrome or Edge or even Opera GX, you can go to the top of your URL and you'll see a little padlock icon. If you're watching this, you will. Click on that padlock icon, and then you can click on. You can usually get find connection is secure. And then you can click on that, and then you can click on the certificate is valid. And you can actually see. So this is Google's specific certificate. You see star.google.com. So anything that's Google owned. It's a Google Trust. It was issued on April 20th. It's valid till July 13th. That sucks for them. Here's their SHA fingerprints, which is like basically their unique identifier, their name.
But now it's time to talk about passwords. Normies who watch Hollywood movies think that hackers get access to the mainframe by running some program that cracks their password.
I could launch a cyber nuke, but it'll completely fry your system.
And believe it or not, Hollywood movies about hacking are 100% accurate. Kali Linux has multiple password cracking tools like John the Ripper and Hydra. But the easiest tool to learn, in my opinion, is Hashcat. First, though, it's crucial to understand that nobody in their right mind stores a plain text password in a database. Instead, passwords get hashed with a one-way algorithm like SHA or B.
Story time, actually, everybody. Story time. I once had a security manager at one of the businesses I worked at a long time ago get very frustrated about password access management, or PAM. And their bright idea was, hey, let's just put all the passwords in a text document, and then we'll store it on the file shares, and then we'll put a password on it, and then we'll do access controls with Active Directory, so only certain people can look at it. That was a security manager making probably close to $200,000 a year who suggested that bright idea, and you're welcome.
Then salt them with another random string to make them even more difficult to crack. Now, even if somebody steals the database, it's still almost impossible to reverse engineer the hash back to the original password.
This is also a lot more of the red team side tooling. I don't do much red team, I'll be honest with you. I'm very much a blue team, white hat kind of person.
The key word here, though, is almost. Let's imagine I found this hash for the president's login credentials to access the Nuclear Armageddon launch button website. Hashcat allows us to run a variety of different strategies to...
It probably is hosted on some sort of web app, let's be honest. It's not a big red button. It's most likely hosted on some discrete URL or specific internal IP address that has very strict DNS controls.
To figure out the original text value of this hash. Like, we could try to brute force every possible string combination, but a more common technique is to use a file like rocku.txt, which contains over 14 million common passwords.
Yep.
Once we have that, we can then use Hashcat and specify...
You can go download Rocku, by the way, and do a quick Control F to search for it and look for your password, and it's a good indicator. My suggestion for passwords specifically is it doesn't have to be stupidly long. It just has to be good enough and not really related to you. A really good password I recommend is like a URL specifically. Like if you type the full URL, https:// whatever website.com, you meet pretty much all your needs except for maybe like a number. But yeah,
a hashing algorithm, which in this example is MD5 because it can be cracked in just a few seconds, but in real life with a hashing algorithm like bcrypt, it might take multiple days to go through the rocky file. In any case, it looks like President Camacho used a weak password and forgot to enable 2FA, which means it's finally time to kick off Armageddon. But you might be wondering how I found this top secret website. Skipfish is a tool for finding vulnerabilities on websites. It will recursively crawl an entire website, and in the process scan for vulnerabilities like cross-site scripting, SQL injection, and other web application screw-ups. It provides this nice HTML report, and what's awesome about it is that if you've already hacked a username and password, you can provide those credentials to also crawl the deep web beyond what's available to the public. Then when you find vulnerabilities, you can use tools like cross-site scripter to install.
Real quick, deep web is not dark web. There's a big difference there. When he says deep web, he's talking about like stuff that is technically public but is hidden from hyperlinks, things you can't click on normally, like config pages, admin portals, things like that. That they exist, they are accessible, but they aren't publicly displayed anywhere on the website for obvious reasons. It's security through obfuscation, so to speak.
Worms, just like my hero Sammy did to MySpace back in 2005. Now, in order to be a successful cyber criminal, you need to think like law enforcement and use their tools like Foremost, a forensic data recovery tool built on a process called file carving. Imagine you got access to a hard drive in Area 51 somehow, but all the data is gone. Well, if they did a quick format and didn't overwrite the data, it can likely be recovered with Foremost.
That's very funny to assume the government wiping policies. Also, they most likely destroyed the hard drives. A lot of companies, especially SOX compliant or ISO 4200 ones, anything that's kind of big or enterprise or has financial data on them, they use dedicated stripping like providers. So your system administrators will wipe the entire drive and then do like a backup wipe in like a format, and then they'll ship them off to a credible source that will completely eradicate the device by destroying every bit of it by throwing them in those like industrial grade grinders, and then send back a certificate saying it's been done.
It doesn't even need a file system and will scan the entire disk image byte by byte, looking for unique patterns like the bytes at the beginning of a header to identify a JPEG. When it finds the corresponding footer, it can then reconstruct an image that you were never supposed to see.
Oh,
and
boy.
That's why when you end up with 2 shots to the back of the head, it'll be ruled a suicide. At this point, we know how to map networks, websites, and hard drives, but the golden goose for any hacker is a database, which can be sold for Monero on the dark web. SQL.
We also just talked about this with the Instructure and Shiny Hunter debacle, where they stole 3.65 terabytes of student information from Canvas. To learn more about that, go ahead and go watch our Netrunner News episode 1 that just launched.
Map allows you to scan a website or server to find all the databases and map out their schemas with all the tables and columns. Once you have that information, you can start launching SQL injection attacks where you submit forms with raw SQL statements in them to try to trick their server into running that code. Or better yet, print that code out and paste it on the front of your car.
Just about to say star drop.
But a more common attack nowadays is denial of service. You probably know how to ping a website in Linux.
All right, everyone and their mothers heard about denial of service or DOS or DDoS. DDoS is slightly different than DOS. It's just dedicated denial of service. How it works is you overflow basically a firewall or whatever control matrix. Basically, you're choking out the bandwidth to someone or your target. A normal DOS, like you can ping from your computer. It's not going to do a lot. It's just like a couple bytes. 64 bytes each. But if you scale it up, you have a full botnet, you have 100,000 computers all sending 64 bytes across different IP addresses at a time, you'll overwhelm a system and cause it to crash, basically not letting any data filter in or out because the firewall is just being too beat up. And to get around this, a lot of companies put multiple firewalls with a load balancer in between them. A load balancer basically just like it's basically the like traffic guard. It just like takes it and distributes it to the usually there's a couple different ways. So you could do shared load, which is the load balancer will try to keep the load as even as possible, or you can do first come first serve. So if one is busy, it'll go to two. If one's not busy, it'll keep going to one constantly until it gets busy. There's a lot of cool stuff you can do with load balancers. And believe it or not, a lot of system administrators or new network administrators, things like that, it's very easy to DOS yourself while setting up something because you're just not expecting it or you don't know what's going on. Yeah, I got more stories for that one.
But in Kali Linux, you can use hping3 along with the flood option to send packets as fast as possible to an IP address without waiting for replies. This can flood a server with traffic and grind it to a halt, or cost the developer millions of dollars if they host on a serverless platform. When used on one machine, it's just a basic DOS attack, but if you distribute it across a botnet of all the machines that you've hacked already, it then becomes a
distributed,
DDoS
not
attack.
dedicated.
Yet another
My
great
bad.
way to embark on a magical journey to prison.
IT has too many acronyms.
Is that most people are victimized by those they trust. Like, I trusted Prince Hyman Cholo to transfer my inheritance after I gave him my checking account password, but he took all my money and went to a Fish concert. The social engineering toolkit in Kali Linux allows you to
here we go.
create
Here's
your
some
own
OSINT.
sophisticated phishing attacks, using a variety of attack vectors like email, QR codes, SMS text messages, Arduino IoT devices, and of course websites. In fact, the tool can even clone a website, which you can then host on your server.
This is a really good example. So if you click on a link, especially and it looks like this and it looks, official like this, see this dangerous icon? That means you're using HTTP. Nothing's encrypted. Nothing is secure. But the normal PayPal website is always encrypted. Most banks are always encrypted. They kind of have to be. It's a compliance rule. Especially if you're a financial institution, you possess or you claim personally identifiable information. You do dedicated reports to a governance of sorts. You need certificate rotations are pretty big deal. So that's a good giveaway there, and I can probably dive into how to tell if a website's legitimate or not for your every person, just so and some couple tools and things. So yeah, well maybe that's a good video idea. We can do that.
And when someone finds it and enters their email and password, it goes directly to you instead of PayPal. But that entire attack was accomplished without writing any JavaScript code. And with that, we've looked at 10 dangerously powerful tools for hackers in Kali Linux. But we've barely scratched the surface, and you'll also want to learn about John the Ripper, Nikto, Burp Suite, just to name a few. Actually, you know what? Forget I ever said anything. Nobody should know about any of these tools, so go ahead and look into this device real quick.
I'm just a figment of your imagination.
Alright guys, you just watched a tutorial about Enterprise Oracle Forms with Microsoft Silverlight, and make sure to smash that like.
Yeah, that's awesome. Okay, so I hope you guys learned something. But yeah, definitely the biggest takeaway is if you don't know what you're doing, first off, stop. Don't do it. Do some research. The second thing is don't do anything without consent. Make sure you have a written form of approval. You're testing this on your own network that you own. If you don't, you could cause some serious problems, and it could land you in jail or being prosecuted and lots of money. Like if, for instance, as he mentioned earlier in this scene, where he flooded somebody with a DDoS, and it cost them a shit ton of money, a company will come after you for that. And if you don't know what you're doing, it'll be very easy for them to find you. And yeah, it's not good. But yeah, the another cool thing I will mention though, if you are interested in this kind of stuff and learning this kind of stuff, there's something called bug bounties or ethical hacking, which is like you're kind of doing more of a service, and you can get paid for it too. So bug bounties are programs where actually like big companies offer hackers money to try to break into their systems, and it's fully credible. It's you're fully licensed to do it. Read their terms and conditions though, because sometimes it's very explicit on what you can and cannot do, and the types of attacks they're looking for. But it's a really good learning method, and there's a lot of people who made some okay money doing it in the past. I don't know if it's still as profitable as it was, but yeah, I would highly recommend that.